Hi, this is Alicia, and this is What's for Dinner. We're having a classic chicken noodle soup for dinner. All right, so we've got our chicken breasts. We're gonna go ahead and just salt and pepper it, cook it in our pot. This is all gonna be in just one pot. So chicken noodle soup is always a family favorite for sure. You know, it's one of those things growing up where when you're not feeling good and you're sick, you know, mom always makes chicken noodle soup and it always makes you feel better for whatever reason. So I'm gonna start by peeling the skin off of our carrots. I'd never had a peeler like this before, and a few years ago, my dad mails me one for my birthday, of all things, a peeler. But out of all the peelers I've had, for whatever reason, I really like it. I'll go ahead and I'll link it in the description so you can go ahead and find one if you want to give this a whirl, and then you can let me know how you like it and what you think of it. I try to keep all of them roughly the same width. Of course, the tip of the carrot is gonna be skinnier than the back end of the carrot. So I'll go ahead and just dice these up, and then I'll probably quarter or half the bigger side. Throw this all in our bowl. Because we're going to be sauteing all of our onion, celery, and carrots together and cooking those first, since they take a little bit longer. I've already currently have a garden going, and I've got some celery in the garden. So I look forward to being able to use our fresh homegrown celery in this soup recipe. Still babies right now, but it'll be nice. So I just cut all of those in half. Just gonna line them all up, and then just gonna chop our celery. All right, again, it's gonna go into our bowl. I'm gonna flip our chicken, check on it. All right, flip that over. Add a little bit more oil. Stick in a little bit. And now our onion. Now I like to cut all of my veggies pretty small, but I also like to cut my celery as well as my carrots in smaller size, kind of like bite-sized pieces. If you like yours a little bit more hearty and chunky, you could definitely go ahead and cut yours in bigger, chunkier pieces. It definitely looks pretty in the soup with bigger, bolder pieces, and this is just what my preference is. I like the smaller pieces. That way when I take a bite, I can get all of it on the same spoon, or a little bit of all of it. I'm hoping the onions that make you cry are the ones that have the best flavor. Don't know if that's actually true, but it'd be nice. Into the bowl so it's ready. All right, still cooking along, not quite done. I get the fattest piece of the chicken. I go ahead and probe the center of it, see if it's done. We're only at 113, and we want the chicken to be at 165, so we still have a little bit to go. Again, these instant read thermometers are really nice. They tell you all about like what temperature your meat is supposed to be at. They're pretty quick. It magnetizes to my fridge. They're great. And we'll link this also. All right, it's showing it's done. Just moving this to a plate to cool and we can shred. And now we've got all these nice caramelized little bits down here. Gonna add a little bit more oil, and then we're gonna saute all of our veggies straight in the same pot. We're sauteing this for 5-7 minutes. Soften up the vegetables once they're softened, because they're bigger pieces, especially the carrots. They take longer to cook. than like just simmering and boiling noodles. So we want to go ahead and saute them in here and get them soft so that once we add the broth and the noodles, it's really close to being done. A rainy day, a sick day. I mean, you can't beat just a classic homemade chicken noodle soup. And then I'm just getting all these little bits that were at the bottom of the pan. Stirring them right in there just adds more flavor. So every once in a while, just give this a little stir. You'll see that the onions will start turning kind of translucent or see-through. The carrots may still take a little bit longer. I tried to cut them all the same thickness so that they'll cook through. All right, so this is almost done. The onions are just about good, so I'm going to add 4 cloves of garlic. You can use like real cloves. I'm just using this already minced garlic. And of course it just says a teaspoon is the equivalent to a clove. So I'm using 4 teaspoons. So if you look here, the onions are almost done. They're not quite like see-through, like a few of them like this one is. But then some of these other ones aren't quite see-through yet. So we're almost there. So I just added the garlic. Gonna let that cook in there with the rest of this for the last minute or two. Like I said, this takes about 5 to 7 minutes. Our onions are nice and good. They'll cook more because we're gonna simmer, we're gonna bring it up to a boil and simmer it once we add our seasoning and our broth. So it'll finish cooking in there too, especially the carrots. So to that, I'm gonna throw in a sprig of thyme, and I've got 2 bay leaves. Both of these smell great. And then I've got our 8 cups of chicken broth. All right, just gonna give that a stir. We're gonna turn up to high and bring it to a boil. So my son hasn't been feeling good the last few days, so he's definitely been wanting some chicken noodle soup. The other day I made him, I'm like, hey, you want a grilled cheese sandwich and some chicken noodle soup? And he's like, yes. And so I made him the grilled cheese sandwich, and like an hour later, he's like, well, where's the chicken noodle soup? So I went ahead and whipped him up some chicken noodle soup. At the time, I didn't have like celery and carrots, so it was just the rest of it without that. So now he's gonna get the full experience, but he enjoyed what he got. All right, so now we're gonna shred our chicken. It's still kind of hot, so I got my handy dandy forks. You could definitely do this with your fingers, but if the chicken is hot, forks make it really easy. You can easily bypass this step and just use a rotisserie chicken. You can use bone-in chicken and do this as well. I had boneless on hand, so that's what I'm using. Yeah, like this is definitely like a beginner meal. Anybody could, I mean, not anybody, but you could have your teenagers make this soup, or a elementary school or middle school kid could help you or make this soup. And it tastes a lot better than opening up a can. So it's a few ingredients. You don't have to cook the chicken because you could buy a rotisserie chicken. You know, more than enough for your family to give away to friends, or even freeze it and then pull it out on that cold winter night, or just when you're sick and you're like, I don't feel like cooking, but I want some soup. It's coming along. Gave it a little taste test, and I'm gonna give it some more salt before we add our noodles, and a little bit more pepper. You can season it at the end too. I like to season it all throughout. But again, you see all those vegetables in there. They're looking all nice and cooked through. Soon we're gonna add our noodles. I'm still at high to bring it to a boil. Simmer it for a little. All right, we got it to a boil. I'm gonna turn it down to like medium high to where it's simmering. I'm gonna add 6 ounces of our egg noodles. I have a 12-ounce bag here, so I'm gonna use about half of it. All right, we're gonna let that simmer for 5 to 7 minutes. To cook the noodles, and then we're going to add our chicken. Yep, I mean, look at all that flavor on top. You can see those floating around in there, kind of. Noodles are about done. I'm gonna go ahead and pull out the bay leaf and the thyme little sprig, and then add my chicken. Pretty hearty chicken noodle soup there. It's a pretty easy meal, and it's all in one pot. So again, it's great for everybody. It comes together quickly. In less than an hour, you've got a nice pot of warm, chicken noodle soup. My oldest daughter, she still comes home like, "You're making chicken noodle soup tonight? I want some." And she's grown, married, and doesn't live here anymore, but she remembers this. It's one of her favorites. Well, it's all of a season to taste. So in the past, I've put more pepper in it. And so although you're sick and your nose is running, this will help your nose run again. I haven't tasted it to see if I want more pepper from what I already added. So, but it's done. Now we're going to go add our splash of lemon and some parsley. I'm just going to squeeze it by hand. You're going to want about a tablespoon. It just elevates the flavors, adds some freshness. You can use a juicer. You just don't want the seeds in there. That's not any fun to eat. So I'm just holding it this way. All right. All right, gonna give that a stir. And then add our parsley, 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon. And then of course you're gonna wanna taste it and see if you wanna add any more salt, pepper. Then it'll be ready to eat. And that's what's for dinner, homemade chicken noodle soup. We seared some chicken with salt and pepper. We sauteed our onions, celery, carrots, and garlic. Then we added our chicken broth along with our bay leaves and our thyme. And then we added our noodles along with our shredded chicken. I let it simmer for about 15 minutes, taste it, and then add any additional seasonings that you would like. And then finish it off with a little bit of lemon and parsley. Oh, and this is a perfect pairing for either some oyster crackers, saltine crackers, or what goes better than a homemade classic chicken noodle soup than a homemade classic grilled cheese sandwich. Enjoy. Hey kids, dinner!